For every iconic Family Guy episode, there is a stinker that is universally hated by fans.
Brian, look out! Brian!
Let's kick things off with Herpes the Love Sore, where the bond between Stewie and Brian took on seedy undertones and became too uncomfortable for some viewers, and by some, I mean a lot.
What the hell? Ow! Ew, what's this?
Surely they didn't think this would win the fans over, right? I don't think they cared, actually. After Stewie walks in on Brian watching the outlaw Josie Wells, where two characters make a blood brothers pact, the two best buddies decide it's time to seal the deal as well.
I think we should hold hands more often.
Blood brothers now. You happy?
Actually, yes.
What could possibly spoil a wholesome moment like this? Well, the next morning, Stewie wakes up and is caught with a sore so gnarly, it makes the plague look like a mild sunburn. Stewie confronts Brian and says this.
You son of a... You gave me herpes!
What? What are you talking about?
Look at my lip, and now I have some very uncomfortable phone calls to make.
Yep, Brian passed his herpes on through the blood pact. Oh, that's gross, dude. This episode's all about the gross factor, which despite being a cartoon is super effective. Just look at recent SpongeBob episodes. Brian denies it at first, but after Stewie parts his fur and reveals his skin looks like the surface of an overcooked pizza, he admits that he's riddled. While Seth MacFarlane has proved time and time again that pushing the envelope can create some truly hilarious moments, the idea of giving a baby a lifelong STD was seen as a step too far. Who'd have thunk it? Meanwhile, at the Clam, Peter and the gang discover that a group of thugs have taken their favorite booth.
You don't want to move, and that's fine. We'll come back in an hour.
But this ain't your booth no more.
Accepting defeat, the guys are forced to sit at the bar instead, but they quickly realize that there are just too many advantages of a booth to give up. For example, the angle of the TV is unwatchable, and poor Joe only has legs covered in spider veins to keep him entertained. But their seating arrangement was the least of their worries.
I heard about what happened at the Clam, and I'm not interested in having with a quarter of a man.
Hey, I'm half a man.
Not anymore.
News travels quickly in Quahog. The gang's cowardly reputation was spreading faster than Brian's herpes. This makes them easy targets for others to bully them. Meanwhile, after Stewie and Rupert have an awkward, albeit one-sided conversation about having to get tested, Chris reveals this.
Yup, he knew he had herpes and he didn't say anything.
And Brian is out of control. He's spreading his friendship bonds all over the place, the hussy. When even Meg is treating Peter like he's the belle of the ball, Lois intervenes and tells Peter that he needs to go to the Clam and reclaim the booth. Joined by Quagmire at the last minute, the guys confront the three thugs, and things go exactly how you'd imagine. After that beating, this is probably the only time Joe is thankful he can't feel anything from the waist down. Despite losing the fight, however, it turns out that the thugs were actually soldiers who had to go out on duty, leaving the booth empty. This plot fell flat and really only seemed like a safety buffer for any upset caused by the herpes shenanigans. Speaking of the herpes trio, Chris and Stewie commit to letting the world know about Brian's disease, including updating his profile picture with a real-life picture of herpes. So if animated sores weren't enough, they went that extra step further. Let's face it, if I want to see people covered in spots, I just go to a Star Trek convention. What disgusted people the most, however, was Brian's uncaring attitude throughout the whole episode.
Because, Brian, for the first time in my life, I realized I couldn't trust my own best friend.
This struck a chord with viewers, as it undid the friendship building that had happened before this moment, including Stewie's campaign to bring Brian back to life earlier in the season.
You're alive, my friend!
What the hell's going on here?
That car killed you. A little part of me died as well.
So Stewie literally invents a time machine to go back and save his best friend, but Brian can't even save him a trip to the clinic? Come on, dude. Brian eventually realizes that it was wrong not to tell Stewie about his condition and apologizes to his friend. So I guess everything's hunky-dory again, except for the fact that they'll have herpes for the rest of their life, offering one last gross-out moment for the road.
So what would you say some of your weaknesses are?
That's probably one of them.
Something tells me he didn't get the job. While this episode was an insult to one of the best TV friendships, they more than made up for it in a crossover everyone wanted, but never actually expected to happen. Family Guy and The Simpsons have been competing with each other in the adult animation scene for years, but when the shows decided to join forces, it created one of the greatest collaborations in cartoon history. A car wash scene isn't the first thing you may think of for this crossover, but I'd be damned if I wasn't on the ground laughing when I first saw it. In The Simpsons Guy, Peter decides to write his own comic strips and gets them published in the paper by calling in a favor.
Why can't anyone get me a picture of the Spider-Man?
Here you go.
Yeah, I got a whole subreddit of superhero thong shots.
Ah, Reddit. Go for the senseless drama, stay for superhero thong shots. A lot of people in Quahog love Peter's jokes, although some get him in hot water, like the one where a guy takes his wife into the shop claiming his dishwasher's broken. Classic, really. The offensive joke puts the worst kind of warriors on his back, the keyboard variety, and Peter is forced to apologize on TV.
You have no idea how offensive you are to women, do you?
What? I bet I can name more than you, but don't tell my wife how many I know.
I may be wrong, but this may not be the best industry to bring up when not trying to sound like a misogynist. Peter's disastrous appearance stirs a protest outside his house, summoning more Karens than a Starbucks that just ran out of oat milk. Scared for their safety, the Griffins flee Quahog, but after stopping at a gas station, they run into a slight issue.
For this leg of the trip, I was thinking of driving with my shirt off.
With no other choice, they walk to a nearby town where the clouds are white, the hills are green, and the fish have more eyes than scales.
Try it like this. Donut.
Donut.
You and I are gonna get along just okay.
Yep, after 15 long years, fans finally got to see Peter and Homer enjoying donuts together, outside of those weird fanfic blogs, that is. The Simpsons are nice enough to put the family up until Chief Wiggum finds the car, giving all the characters time to bond. Stewie helps Bart deal with Nelson in the most psychotic way. Lisa takes Meg under her wing. Chris and Brian take care of Santa's little helper. Marge and Lois go to the movies, and Homer and Peter agree to team up to find the car. I'm not too sure about this. With their track records, this can only end in disaster, and everyone knew it when watching it for the first time. So where do they start? Well, their first move is to think like a car and do what cars do.
Oh, crap.
I think you're doing it wrong, guys. Gas is supposed to come out of there, not in. The next great idea is to lure the car thief by doing this. This reminds me, I need to go to the car wash after this video. Not to clean my car, to wash my eyes out! Eventually, the car shows up after Hans Molman took it by mistake, and with the Griffins ready to leave, Peter and Homer have a goodbye drink. Wholesome, right? Well, Peter offers Homer one of his Pawtucket ales, and things turn sour. You see, it turns out that the Quahog local beer is actually Duff with a new label on it. This leads to the Pawtucket Brewery getting sued and closed down. Seeing any parallels here? Any friendship that they had developed between them quickly unravels here, and things go nuclear when Peter says the 3 words you should never say to Homer or the Simpsons fandom.
I'm saying the Simpsons suck.
Why, you?
What happens next is quite possibly the most wackiest, violent, and over-the-top fight that either series has ever seen, which takes place in several iconic Springfield locations. Roll over, Ernie the chicken. Peter's the final boss. This fight is downright ridiculous in the best possible way and had fans on the edge of their seats. But there could only be one winner, and as it was a Family Guy episode, I guess they just couldn't let Peter lose. The Simpsons Guy episode has been hailed as one of the best due to the way that both shows managed to combine their different styles of humor to create some seriously hilarious and cohesive gags. Fans of both franchises also loved the self-satire from both shows, like how Bart has been a kid for 22 years, how Seth MacFarlane only accepted to do the episode because Fox wanted the marketing, and pointing out the glaring similarities between the characters.
But it's not just the main Duff recipe that's been plagiarized, and design elements have been similarly several other Duff variations, packages, fringed. Result cheap copies, clumsy counterfeits, and weak substitutions.
Well, they do say imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. After the dust settles from their epic fight, the 2 patriarchs of the family make a truce and show their respect for each other. This, of course, is a head nod to how the 2 creators feel about the shows. While Homer and Peter's meeting was legendary, another bizarre relationship that formed between the 2 other unlikely characters wasn't so entertaining. They say the thrill is in the chase, and when Chris finally reciprocates Herbert's affection, viewers realize that not all role reversal episodes work.
Is this really happening? You're going down, old man.
I've got the same exact question for the writers team. Is this really happening? In Con Harris, Stewie discovers that Brian is hanging out with older women. Stewie instantly assumes there's something seedy going on, but Brian is adamant that he's just keeping her company after her husband passed away. The lady doth protest too much, methinks. Meanwhile, Peter decides to teach Chris how to cut the lawn, so he won't have to do it himself.
For the rest, you can just watch this how-to video on YouTube.
What's going on, guys? Here to
take your lawn mowing skills to the next level.
You can't help but respect his level of laziness. The lawn mowing doesn't go unnoticed by Herbert, however, who offers Chris $600 a week to mow his lawn. He just needs to go under the table to get the money. Does anyone know the number for Dateline? While Chris is making money, Brian is also trying to bag himself by scamming rich old women, and Stewie wants to get in on it.
What the hell are you doing here? This is my scam. Now butt out.
These old bags are going to die. Someone's going to end up with their money.
This is exactly why I'm always warning my grandma about dogs and babies in cute little outfits. They just cannot be trusted. Back at Herbert's house, the Griffin's boys turned up to cut the grass with a resident pervert mistaking Peter for a kid. Get out of there, brother! Run! Chris and Peter get to work on Herbert's grass, which thankfully isn't a euphemism, but it does get a little too close to becoming one.
But Mr. Herbert, you always made the cookies with the large pill in the center for me.
He just got to him first.
I thought I was your favorite.
Are you sure you didn't slip you something, Chris? While this is going on, the con artists agree to join forces to seduce the wealthiest heiress in Newport, but there's just one problem. Her 95-year-old husband is clinging on for dear life to his life. So while the two keep an eye on their target, the biggest bone of contention for this episode happens after Brian tells Stewie the heiress's name.
Who is she? That's Margaret Woolworth Carrington von Schumacher Chanel Batten Windsor Armani Roosevelt Ginham Hearst Montgomery Rothschild.
Yeah, this goes on for a while and stops being funny about a third of the way through. Fans thought this gag went on for far too long and happened way too many times in the episode, leading people to believe it was just used as filler to save on writing time, but that's not the only thing that got under people's skins. With the end looking nigh for the heiress's husband, Brian and Stewie swoop in to secure the wealth. They are doing just about anything to get the job done, including Brian wearing a Cats League protection pin. What a traitor! The plan seems to be working, and the husband seems to be going on his last legs here until...
Get the hell out of my face, Brian.
Quagmire?
No, Quagmire.
That's what I said.
How can they think that they can compete against Quagmire in seducing old women? Let's face it, he's probably not doing it just for the money. But he does offer them a deal. If they find a way for the heiress to die, he'll split the inheritance. Well, it turns out they didn't have to do anything to get the money, as the heiress died of natural causes anyway. Or did she?
What a couple of rubes. I'm finally out from under that crushing debt.
Yes, it was a Meg story.
I don't know what's worse, being conned into taking on $18 million of debt or being tricked by Meg. Yeah, they'll never live this one down. Back on Spooner Street, Chris's jealousy of Peter and Herbert's relationship hits boiling point, and the two sweaty guys begin fighting topless. This proves to be too much for Herbert, especially after discovering who Chris's chubby friend really is.
Why are you being such a jerk, Dad?
Dad?
Well, he often said he wanted to explode all over me.
Ah, the one word that is kryptonite to perverts. Though this Brian-Stewie team-up didn't pan out well critically, it's fair to say that most of their adventures usually err on the good side. After Brian realizes that time machines are chick magnets, he inadvertently sends himself and Stewie back in time, but not in the traditional of senses.
I think I can hear the ocean. Smell it, too.
Well, there you go. The Family Guy writers just came up with an entirely new form of horror. I'm absolutely terrified of reverse birth. At the start of Yug Yilamath, which is just Family Guy backwards, by the way, Brian is striking out with the ladies, but with the promise of showing off Stewie's time machine, he manages to convince a woman to go back home with him.
How romantic.
Yeah, you know me.
Oh my God, the president's been shot!
While Brian was shooting his shot, so was Lee Harvey Oswald. They didn't include that in the history books. After realizing the time machines are a great way to pick up women, Brian takes full advantage of the situation, traveling through time and space like a randy Doctor Who. What Brian didn't realize, however, is that the time machine was clocking all the years, which Stewie was bound to notice. He follows the advice of his date to turn the years back to cover things up, but things do not go according to plan.
Oh my God, it's having a complete meltdown!
This is why you always read the user manuals. After waking up, Stewie and Brian discover that the malfunction has changed the direction of time, reversing everything except them. Ernie and Peter have an unfight and a plane crashes. Not everyone is so lucky, though.
Reverse time did that kid a favor.
I'm not so sure about that.
Stand up! You're gonna break that thermometer!
This episode was hailed as a huge success due to its clever premise, as well as opening up a lot of opportunities for time-related jokes and visits to past episodes, like this memorable moment from Season 4.
Is that the Epicac bottle? Oh no, not this.
Oh God, it's not gonna be coming out of us. It's gonna be going...
Ah, what the hell?
I don't want it. I don't want it.
Man, I don't know which direction of time would be better in this situation. Things soon take a concerning turn when Stewie realizes that time isn't just going backwards, it's accelerating backwards.
Man, we got a large number of clovers on our lawn.
No, 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 no! Oh, hey, Cleveland.
To make matters worse, Stewie begins to feel the effects of reverse time, meaning that he will continue to get younger until he is unborn. Sure, that sounds freaky, but what I find most disturbing is how nobody's speaking backwards. Unless I'm also being affected by reverse time right now, which means I can understand reverse language. I need to lie down. With Stewie getting younger and younger, time is running out. Ironically, as it's being restored. Stewie regresses to how he was when he first arrived home from the hospital before being taken back to the hospital at the moment of his birth.
Come on, Brian, hurry!
It's a girl with a no.
Yeah, Stewie's gonna need a lot of counseling after this one. Luckily, with some quick thinking from Brian, he does what he did before, but moves the gauge forward, fixing time. Brian rushes to the hospital to see his best friend get born again, and after Brian asks where Stewie is, without yet naming the football-headed baby, Lois thinks the name really suits him. So that's where he got his name. From himself. Makes perfect sense to me. Thankfully, Stewie tells Brian this.
You did it. You saved my life. I shall be forever grateful.
I couldn't imagine life without you, buddy.
This episode found the perfect mix of jokes with a good balance of a well-thought-out plot. Unlike the time Peter does something so drastic to keep Carter's inheritance, Family Guy has very few boundaries when it comes to humor, which often results in the usual side-splitting stuff. But when they overstep this line, they really overstep the line.
Chris, wake up. I have something very important to ask you. There comes a time when every man looks at his son and thinks, I want to take this to the next level.
I get a lot of folks are close to their parents, but that's just way too much for me. In Fresh Air, Chris wants some father and son fishing time, but Peter is not interested. This upsets Chris, who wonders why he doesn't want to spend time with him. This is when Lois suggests that he could take care of his grandpa while he recovers from an injury. Something tells me that she only suggested it to get out of the job herself. From the get-go, it is clear that this episode is going for messed up shock humor. For example, one cutaway gag shows Peter's hairless twin in the shed who looks like an overweight naked mole rat. Well, that's not really that bad. It gets worse, such as this nugget of wisdom Chris shares with his frustrated grandpa.
God, I wish there was a way I could just do it myself. You know, just to be done and napping within 4 minutes.
Let me show you something.
Cool. Hey, next time I want to try it with my hand.
Yeah, some lessons don't have to be taught, guys, like not pausing to answer your partner when they ask you, do I look fat in this? After Chris and Carter have some family bonding time, they find ways to entertain themselves, like having the pizza delivery drivers race each other and starting their own garage band. Old man-themed rock music? I definitely buy tickets for the Bedpan Bandits tour. Once Carter's back on his feet, he thanks Chris in the biggest way possible.
And I have an important announcement to make. I have decided to change my will. Grandson Chris, the sole heir to the Pewterschmidt fortune.
What?
With Chris now an heir-to-be, Peter decides he'll have to suck up to Chris if he has any chance of getting the inheritance. So, how does a middle-aged man connect with his teenage son? Well, like this, apparently.
Hey, there he is. Oh, boy, hot dogs and Nintendo, huh, Chris?
Oh, so now you want to spend time with him. There's nothing like a huge fortune to bring a father closer to his son. Peter laughs at his jokes, makes up a secret handshake, and even decapitates a school bully who turns out to be an innocent deaf person. Yeah, he really wants that money. Peter works tirelessly to connect with Chris, but struggles to find anything in common. Exhausted, Peter goes to the clam and explains what's been going on to the guys. Now, this is where Peter gets one of his most outrageous ideas to date, which many thought was too insane, even for the legendary Peter Griffin.
There comes a time when every man looks at his son and thinks, I want to take this to the next level.
Yeah, Peter proposes to his own family, his own son, just to get the inheritance. It might have been acceptable for the British monarchy a couple of hundred years ago, but now it's just wrong. What's more concerning is that Chris actually accepts, even after realizing that Peter is only after the money, but his motives are actually really sad. He accepts to marry his dad if it means they'll get to spend more quality time together. That's messed up. After tricking Lois into signing the divorce papers, Peter and Chris head out to Vermont where they can legally tie the knot. So this marriage is just a formality on paper, right? Nah.
No, Dad.
That's right, the Griffin couple are going the whole hog. They set up their bridal registry, organized the wedding breakfast, and even practiced their first dance. With everything organized, all that's left to do is the ceremony, attended by guests of the previous cat funeral. How thoughtful of them. Luckily, Lois finds out about the twisted plan and crashes the wedding in the nick of time.
Peter, you cannot
do this. I don't care how much money Daddy's left him.
Don't listen to your mother, Chris. It's because of her we have bedtimes.
But this is when Chris drops the bombshell that he wants to marry Peter because it means he can spend quality time with him. And guys, this might sound crazy, but might I throw a suggestion? Why not start small, like go to a game or something? I don't know. So then, and only then, might I add, that Peter realizes that he's been a huge jerk. He calls the wedding off and promises to spend more time with his son with no strings attached. And more importantly, he learns this important lesson.
And I guess I learned it's wrong to take your son to Vermont under false pretenses to try to marry him for his inheritance.
You should have known that.
Yet another reason that doesn't have to be taught. This episode is hated by many fans because of its overuse of inter-family relationship jokes, from Chris helping his grandpa to Peter proposing to Chris, Joe trying it on with his son, and this awkward moment.
Chris, our bath is ready.
I don't know what to do now. I don't have the parenting skills necessary to deal with this.
I say we never speak of this again.
While Family Guy usually pulls these kind of topics off as short tongue-in-cheek gags, this time it proved too prolonged, too uncomfortable, and just too unfunny. But the show has proved time and time again that a couple of bad apples don't spoil the bunch. In fact, their more adventurous ideas have turned out to be some of their most beloved episodes. Family Guy is arguably at its best when they do intricate storylines with clever humor, like the time the Griffins stumble into a murderer's trap, killing off several characters. Best part of the episode? It's got real stakes. These characters stay dead. And then there were fewer starts as a classic murder mystery trope, or pretty much every Scooby-Doo episode. The mysterious letter inviting the Griffins to a dinner party at an isolated mansion. Of course, Peter has no idea who this person is, but hey, free food's free food. Once they arrive at Rocky Point Manor, however, they soon realize that they're not the only ones here. Wow! I don't envy Consuela being in charge of the turn-down service. As night falls and a heavy storm rolls in, the guests sit down for dinner and finally meet their mysterious host.
Good evening, everyone.
James Woods?
Woods introduces his new girlfriend Priscilla and explains that after becoming a born-again Christian, he wants to apologize to everyone he has wronged. Sounds kinda nice, right? Well, things go south really quickly.
You know, it's like when I did Glenn's star chart. Did the cork hit me?
And right before the appetizers, too. Killers have no consideration. The group assumes it must be James Woods who killed Glenn's girlfriend Stephanie and hot-footed out of there. As they all try to drive away, however, a tree is struck by lightning and crashes through a bridge. To make things worse, there's no cell phone reception. Of course there's not. With no other choice, they return to the mansion to confront the murderer, but there's a slight problem.
Look!
Hey, I'm no Sherlock, but I don't think he's the murderer anymore. Realizing that the killer is amongst them, the guests begin piecing things together and find a hidden gun with a timer attached to it, aiming at the chair James Woods was meant to be sitting in. They then discover that Muriel has a motive to kill Woods, as he was blackmailing her to keep prescribing drugs. When they try to grab her, however, the lights dip and she disappears. The group split up to find Muriel, with Stewie and Brian finding her first. Unfortunately, they didn't find her fast enough.
Muriel, my sweet Muriel. She was so beautiful. She was so generous. We were married.
Such a touching tribute, Mort. But I'd work on it for the funeral. With more twists than a pretzel factory design department and breaking up shocking and suspenseful moments like this one with top-tier gags, fans consider this pretty much a perfect episode. And after how this case turns out, I couldn't agree more. With the body count now at 3, time is quickly running out for the rest of the group. Luckily, Quagmire's astute observation skills come in handy.
Wait a minute. Something's not right here. We're short one in this room.
Oh my God! Priscilla's gone!
Never expect an ounce of nuance with Quagmire. With Priscilla now missing, Derek rushes to the roof to find a signal. Yeah, because going anywhere alone with a killer on the loose has always worked out fine for everyone.
Oh my God. It's you. Stay back. Stay back.
Oh, did I say fine? You know what I meant. The group believes that Priscilla must be the killer, although let's face it, their hunches up until now have not been the best. After searching the rooms for the missing woman, they find some evidence pointing to the killer, a bloody golden globe under Tom Tucker's bed. Obviously, this could have been planted by Priscilla, if not for this teensy-weensy detail. Dead people can't kill people. It seems clear that Tom is responsible for all the murders, and the group captures him. With the killer caught, the storm is gone, the bridge is fixed, the ordeal is over. With everyone ready to leave, Lois checks in on Diane to see how she's doing, a decision she instantly regrets.
She actually bought me this blouse for my first solo broadcast.
I mean, how could she have known you'd be anchoring alone? I mean, none of this happened until... You're the killer!
Very clever, Lois.
It's always the ones you least expect. Diane explains that she met James Woods a year before and began seeing him, but after turning 40, Tom got a younger woman to replace her as his anchor partner, while Woods dumped her. Huh, double whammy. Wanting revenge, she manipulates Priscilla to seduce Woods, convert him to Christianity, and convince him to organize a dinner party so she can murder him and frame Tom. Sheesh! What happened to the days when exes just burned your clothes after a breakup? Well, it turns out that Priscilla had no idea that Diane was going to kill Woods, and after catching the killer removing the knife, Priscilla just had to go. Muriel also caught Diane with a knife, which added her to the list of collateral damage as well. As for Derek, Diane couldn't let the police come before all the loose ends were tied up, so after bashing his head in, she planted the Golden Globe under Tom's bed. Unfortunately, it's too late for Lois. While standing on a cliff's edge and a gun pointed at her, things are looking pretty bleak. Until...
If anybody's gonna take that down, it's gonna be me.
Well done, Stewie. Someone's getting an extra potion of mashed bananas tonight. Suffice to say, this episode was a hit. I mean, it was nominated for an Emmy after all. It's just a shame that so many characters had to die. But their deaths did add to the plot, unlike the time a Griffin family member was senselessly killed off. Despite Seth MacFarlane rectifying the death of a beloved character, it didn't stop the public uproar that followed, which branded one episode nothing more than a publicity stunt.
Oh boy, this is probably the worst pain I've ever had to go through. And I've sprained my ankle twice.
I don't think spraining your ankle can be compared to a family death, Peter. Life of Brian starts with Stewie and Brian fleeing from a group of angry Native Americans after traveling back to the 17th century and giving their ancestors guns. What a sentence! This leads to the future being completely changed, and the duo needs to go back in time to restore things. But that will not be easy. We're dealing with time.
What is it? Looks like it took some bullets during our escape. Doesn't seem to be working.
Luckily, the Native American version of Stewie also created a time machine in his reality, allowing the pair to put things right and take the guns back. Hey, it's rude to take back gifts, and it makes Christmas morning really awkward. With things back to normal, Stewie decides to destroy his time machine so it can never put them in danger again. So once the machine is dropped off at the dump, they turn their attention to more important matters, like the cool stuff people have thrown out. After finding a street hockey net, they decide to take it back with them so they can play a game. I mean, who wouldn't want a dirty old hockey set from the dump? Just take the old band-aids and banana peels off, it'll look good as new. Ready to have some fun, the duo go home to set up the game, but that's when the unthinkable happens, and Brian is hit by a car. While this level of injury happens all the time in Family Guy, this time his plot armor ran out.
You've given me a wonderful life. I love you all.
Stewie blames himself for destroying the time machine, which could have obviously saved him, and vows to rebuild it. Isn't it always the way? You throw something out and then you instantly need it? The problem is Stewie can't track down the titanium capacitor, putting an end to any possibility of bringing Brian back. With no other alternative, Brian is put to rest, with Peter sharing these emotional words.
The truth is, Brian wasn't just my dog. He was my best friend in the whole world. He was loyal. I guess what I'm trying to say is, he was like a brother to me. I'm going to spend the rest of my life missing him.
Which, I'm going to be real, I was not expecting that to be taken seriously when I first saw it. While the episode paid a fitting tribute to everyone's favorite talking dog, the senselessness of the death instantly angered fans, as it wasn't a result of some epic adventure, but a car accident. Seth MacFarlane later said that this was by design and wanted to reflect real-life tragedy and remind people that they shouldn't take characters for granted. But as the episode continues, further fuel is added to the fire when Lois decides it's time to find a new dog.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. So what's your story?
Just a regular guy. You throw a stick, maybe I bring it back. Maybe I bring back an iPhone that fell off a truck.
The Griffins bring Vinny back home, and he becomes an instant hit with everyone except for Stewie, who still isn't over Brian. While crying about his missing best friend and how everyone has forgotten about him seemingly, Vinny comforts Stewie and shares his past.
I live with an old man named Leo, and we got pretty tight. Kind of became my whole world. By the time he passed away, it was real tough.
Stewie realizes that their new dog is also dealing with loss, which forms a new friendship. So the death of Brian wasn't well received for a number of reasons. Not only did it completely changed the comical tone of the episode to something really bleak, but the Griffins' choice to adopt Vinny in the same episode did not sit right either. While it was a touching episode that dealt with the reality of death, many people found it too serious for a Family Guy episode. The loss of Brian caused a huge reaction from fans, with the subject trending on social media even. On top of that, there was also a petition to bring him back that got over 150,000 signatures, with one guy even getting a rib tattoo with the image of Brian to honor him. He must regret that. Just 2 episodes later, and on Christmas, guys, Stewie found a way to go back in time to save Brian from getting run over. While this was a relief to many fans, also very many found the episode pointless, depressing, and designed to trick them for a publicity stunt. I just feel sorry for the poor guy who got himself inked. Maybe next time wait a few more episodes, pal. This episode proves that having a time machine hanging around is a good thing. If not to revive your dead pets, then to take a trip down memory lane and go back to where Family Guy began. Many well-established shows wish they could bury their pilots, but not Family Guy. They celebrate the cringe.
Oh, hey. Who the deuce are you?
You know they're going old school when Stewie's still saying deuce. In Back to the Pilot, Brian needs Stewie's help to find a missing tennis ball he buried over 10 years ago, which just so happens to coincide with the day Family Guy first aired. Hopping in the time machine, the duo go back in time to their former, albeit lower quality, home.
Excellent. The mind control device is nearing completion.
Stewie, I said no toys at the table.
Damn you, vile woman!
Stewie looked so mean back then. Maybe he was still teething. Brian wants to dig up his ball there and then, but Stewie tells him he can't do that because it would change the future. This is where Brian makes the valid point that they could do a lot of good by changing the past and stopping awful events that are soon to come to pass. Brian always trying to take the moral high ground. Fascinated, Brian and Stewie continue to spy on their past selves and make a bizarre discovery.
Wait, what are they doing?
I don't know, they're just standing there like zombies.
And remember you had an Irish coffee the day we went to see Philadelphia?
Oh, they're setting up cutaways.
So that's what they do when we watch some wacky scenario. It's kind of freaky. The time travelers go to Stewie's room so they don't get seen using the time machine to return home, but past Stewie does end up catching them, making for a weird comparison between the old art style and the new one. Fans loved how they poked fun at themselves in the early stages of the show. They make fun of how Stewie uses longer words than a blogger with a broken space bar, how Meg's original voice actor passed up a huge opportunity, and point out an infamous animation error.
Ew, I remember this. Peter's eye did that weird creepy thing where it went over his nose.
Oh, remember when you got drunk off the communion wine at church?
If you can't laugh at yourself, who can you really laugh at, right? When Stewie and Brian are ready to return home, they discover that the batteries in the return pad have run out of juice. After taking some money Peter dumps at the Super Bowl to buy new batteries, they are forced to hop through time again when the blimp comes crashing down towards them. They end up at the court hearing for Peter's welfare fraud case, but end up distracting the Kool-Aid guy.
He only accepted that money because he...
Oh yeah! Oh yeah! Yeah! You guys did this! You guys did this!
Did they just destroy the Kool-Aid guy?
Oh yeah!
After getting back to their own timeline, everything seems normal, except for the fact that Brian reminded his past self about 9/11, which meant he stopped it from happening. This obviously changes the future, including Bush reforming the Confederacy after losing the election.
Bush lost in 2004?
Yeah, he probably couldn't exploit people's fears with no 9/11.
There is one time travel rule, Brian, and you blew it. Even with a civil war breaking out in this timeline, Brian is adamant that he did the right thing. To prove it, Stewie and Brian head 5 years into the future and discover things are a little different.
Nice work, Bri.
Whoops. At least Joe gets to be a cyborg.
The world may have become post-apocalyptic, but Joe's looking well. Brian's meddling caused a huge ripple in time, resulting in a nuclear war that wiped out 17 million people. Desperate to set things right, they head back to tell past Brian not to tell past Brian about 9/11. The duo then returned back home again to check if they have restored the original timeline.
9/11. Oh, there it is. We did it, Brian. High five!
All right, high five!
Congratulations, I guess. But not everything is the same this time. Brian made sure he was the author of the Harry Potter books. Come on, dude! You had the self-control of a raccoon in a dumpster full of pizza. And honestly, kinda same. Having to once again head back to the past, they run into more versions of themselves with warnings for the future.
It's what you're about to do, stopping them, that causes utter bedlam. Oh, come on. We're from the further future. What you guys do eventually works out. It's what you two are about to do that ruins everything.
So it's fair to say these guys have well and truly screwed up. The alternate versions of themselves continue to turn up to warn the previous Brian and Stewies about their mistakes until ultimately the Stewie we've been following tells them all to go home and do nothing. Literally, stick to the rule of not messing with the timeline. He even gets a little persuasive to make sure it doesn't happen.
Who are you? Just get back in your time machine, get back to the present, and stay there! You gonna flap your lips, or are you gonna do what I said?
Okay.
My God!
That'll teach Brian to follow the rules. With the original time-traveling pair stopped in their tracks, all other versions cease to exist, which means that everything that happened in the episode never happened and all goes back to normal. Thank goodness. While Family Guy cleverly added a level of self-commentary through Brian and Stewie pointing out the flaws of the pilot, the same can't be said about the worst-rated Family Guy episode to date. The Griffins are no strangers to breaking the fourth wall to get creative, but in You Can't Handle the Booth, they went one step further, which proved to be one step too far for fans, or several.
Yeah, I'll tell you how. You can explain to me why my husband makes 4 times as much money as I do.
Okay, this is awkward, but
I assumed you knew.
The episode starts with the Griffins heading into a recording booth at the Fox Studios to do the DVD commentary along with the real-life animation producer of the show, Shannon Smith. The episode they're talking over is actually one that never aired, giving viewers a glimpse into what happens behind the scenes.
The new smartphone from Crabapple is out.
Awesome!
Yeah, the network doesn't like us using the names of actual companies on the show.
We can still say Burger Kong, McDarrell's, Coca-Cola.
Like any DVD commentary, the Griffins speak over the scenes to give insight, but this is where they made their first and possibly biggest mistake. As this was supposed to be a new episode that nobody had seen, viewers were trying to understand the plot of the episode, but had characters speaking over it, making for a very confusing watch.
That open bottle, is that yours or mine?
I don't know, maybe yours?
This is why we need a Sharpie in here to put our names on our water!
Jeez, Chris, what the hell?
The plot of the episode sees the Griffin family all buying the new Crabapple phone, but after Lois catches fire and nobody helps her, she tells the rest of the family that they are too obsessed with their phones. The final straw is when the Griffins are too distracted to witness the second coming of Christ.
Jesus Christ!
Guys, Danny the intern is here with your paychecks.
Oh, thanks, Danny.
In their defense, if they just wait 30 more seconds, it'll all be over X. During the voiceover, Lois finds out that Peter has paid more money than her because he has to pay alimony to his first wife, Sarah Paulson. This obviously angers Lois, which is further fueled when Paulson comes into the booth to add to the commentary.
Hi, everybody. So sorry I'm late. I was stuck in the canyon.
Is that a euphemism for lesbian?
Come on, guys, be quiet for a second. I want to see what type of sandwich Predator likes. Sarah Paulson brags about the awards she's won and references her past projects, but the problem is that some fans aren't familiar with the actress. This is something that the Family Guy team must have realized as Chris tells the viewers to pause the episode and Google her. It seems like it was more for the celebrity connection rather than for content, which alienated some viewers. While Lois and Peter leave the booth to argue about his secret ex-wife, in the episode they are watching, Lois takes the children and Brian to the old Sturbridge village to show them how times before technology were better.
Here's a fun fact. In colonial times, butter and soap were the same thing.
You know, walking around smelling like popcorn doesn't sound great. Back at the Griffin household, Peter manages to get himself stuck in the baluster slat of the stairs after dropping his meatball sub. This gives him the perfect opportunity to sing a rendition of an obscure Muppet song that went on for far too long.
Halfway up the
I don't believe this. Singing the same song a frog sang. How the hell was this not cut from the show?
My thoughts exactly, Lois. Someone's getting fired. The Griffins in the episode return to find Peter in his predicament, but manage to get themselves stuck too. And to make matters worse, a gang of burglars walk in to rob the place and have a karaoke party. And they might be bad guys, but you can't say they don't know how to have a good time. As this is going on, the drama in the booth hits a boiling point.
You're dishonest, and frankly, I deserve better.
What are you saying, Lois?
I'm saying this marriage is over.
Wow, I've never heard Lois scream this much. Get that woman a throat lozenge stat. With Lois ending the marriage and quitting Family Guy, there's only one man who can save the future of the show. Nope, not another Homer Simpson cameo, but the creator of Family Guy, Seth MacFarlane himself, who shatters the fourth wall.
I'm actually here to tell you there's no need to talk sense into Lois, or for anyone to leave the show, because you're all TV characters, voiced by me, Alex Borstein, Seth Green, and Mila Kunis.
Can you imagine how trippy it was filming this episode and holding a conversation with your fictional characters? Luckily, Lois forgets to pick up her paycheck, and the rest of the group explain that they are just cartoon characters. She realizes that if everything they do is scripted, nothing actually matters, including Peter's secrets. I guess finding out that you don't really exist puts things into perspective.
The truth is, you should all be thankful you're animated characters. Lois, you haven't aged in decades. Stewie, you get to travel through time and do things no baby could ever do.
Anywho, easy to say that this episode is hated for a reason. It's incredibly hard to follow and gets kind of boring at a lot of points. While this episode felt totally disconnected and messy, the most cherished Family Guy episode could be described the same, but in the most intricate and hilarious way possible. The adventures of Brian and Stewie have become some of the best in Family Guy's series, but there's one that fans consider the absolute masterpiece.
What the hell? I don't know, but suddenly I feel all sweet and warm and fuzzy.
Every time I rewatch this episode, I get that same warm, fuzzy feeling inside. Legitimately, a banger! Road to the Multiverse sees the Griffin family attending the annual Quahog Clam Day celebrations. There's a clam-themed milk bottle toss game, a guess the weight competition, and a best pig competition, which Stewie wins. After Brian asks where he got a muscular pig that looks like a bodybuilder who had a bowl of roids for breakfast, Stewie lets him in on a little secret.
You ever heard of the multiverse theory, Brian? There are an infinite number of universes coexisting with ours on parallel dimensional planes.
Dimensional planes, right.
Well, if it's good enough for Spider-Man, it's good enough for these guys. To show Brian what the multiverse looks like, they take a trip to a super futuristic reality. Stewie explains that it formed this way because Christianity was never invented, so the Dark Ages never happened, and science was allowed to advance. While this universe is massively different from their normal one, what is most unbelievable is that their version of Meg looks like this.
My God, is that Meg?
After seeing the wonders of alternate dimension, Brian is still keen to see more. First, they visit a Flintstones version of reality before moving on to a version of Spooner Street where Japan won the Second World War. After they get their fill of reality jumping, Stewie and Brian try to return home but end up in a universe where everyone has two heads, one that's happy and another that's sad.
Honey, have you seen Stewie?
I sure have. He's over there playing in the corner.
I want you to know I love you.
I'm trying to get excited about it.
Man, these guys would be total buzzkills at parties. Plus, imagine how much shampoo they'd go through. Stewie tries to get them home again, but the untested reality hopping machine beams them into a block of ice during an ice age. Unable to reach the controller, Brian relies on his doggy instincts.
Keep going.
Okay, let's see. You want to go for a walk?
It's working. Do more.
You want a treat, boy?
But you really have one, right?
Oh, yeah.
And we're going for that walk?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
The next trip through the multiverse lands the duo in a world where everyone needs to drop a deuce before going to a reality where everyone acts and looks like whimsical and happy Disney characters who have a slight obsession with pie. Sounds like my kind of place. Stewie and Brian press the button several more times to get home, but don't have a lot of success.
Love it.
Hate it. Brian, this feels weird.
It's fortunate that Family Guy isn't live action. Can you imagine what the chicken fight would have been like? The animal rights people would have been all over that. After hopping into a Washington Post political cartoon, a universe with just a really complimentary guy, and a reality of portraits, they end up in a world where the roles between dogs and humans are reversed. Suddenly, Brian changes his tune and decides he wants to stay.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Holly. Let's go. This guy's a freak.
I wonder why. Stewie fixes the controller, but after the two struggle, it smashes on the ground, trapping them in this version of reality. With nowhere else to go, they turn up at the Griffin household under the guise of new neighbors. There they find the dog equivalent to each family member, as well as a human Brian, which just feels wrong. With Stewie feeling hopeless about returning home, it turns out that the pooch version of him is just as smart or even smarter than him.
I know who you are, Stewie.
I beg your pardon?
In fact, I figured out how to navigate with absolute precision.
We've been jumping randomly from one universe to the next.
Did you have the shuffle button on?
Ah, classic rookie move when navigating the multiverse. Or Spotify. Always uncheck the shuffle button, folks. Dog Stewie offers to send them back using his machine, but after biting Peter for being annoying, Dog Joe takes human Stewie to the pound to be dealt with.
You can pick him up tomorrow.
Oh, okay.
Just bring a trash bag.
What did he mean by that? Any human that bites a dog gets euthanized. You know that.
Yeah, just like in our world, if they bite someone, it's curtains. With no time to lose, the two Brians and Dog Stewie sneak past Joe and free Stewie. With Joe on their tail, quite literally, Dog Stewie opens up a portal and sends the reality hoppers back home, along with human Brian. Now free from the rule of dogs, human Brian can go and live a great life.
Free in a world of his own kind, full potential.
Oh my God, he got hit by a car!
Or maybe not. Road to the Multiverse was an ambitious concept that the Family Guy team pulled off flawlessly. They experimented with different animation styles, had a solid plot throughout, had hilarious gags, and had their trademark gift of making people reflect on how society is. It was a home run, and one the fans appreciated. That's all for today. Click the video on screen to check out some more Family Guy goodness. Bye-bye.